If you thought Caitlin Clark was already one of the most intense and emotional stars in the WNBA, this latest moment just took the conversation to another level, because now the entire basketball world is locked in on one simple reality. Caitlin Clark is officially one technical foul away from an automatic one-game suspension. And the reason this is exploding everywhere right now is not just because of the number itself. It's because of what it represents. It represents the pressure, the spotlight, the emotion, the physicality, and the non-stop tension that seems to follow Caitlin Clark every single time she steps on the court. This is no longer just a minor side story. This has become one of the biggest talking points around the league, because the next time emotions boil over, the consequences get very real, very fast. What makes this story even bigger is how the moment happened. This was not some random quiet technical in a forgettable game. This happened during Indiana's dominant win over the Connecticut Sun, a game the Fever controlled, a game where Clark was once again producing at a high level, finishing with 27 points and 11 assists. Even in a blowout, even with the scoreboard clearly in Indiana's favor, the energy on the floor was still heated enough for things to erupt. And that tells you everything about where Caitlin Clark is right now in the league. Every possession with her feels personal. Every matchup feels emotional. Every opponent seems locked in on her, and every reaction from her gets magnified immediately. The moment everyone is talking about came in the third quarter when Clark got into a verbal exchange with Connecticut Sun guard Saniya Rivers. According to Clark's own explanation after the game, Rivers said she was locking Clark up, and Clark fired right back with one word that instantly became the quote of the night: scoreboard. That was it. Short, direct, cutting, and perfectly in line with the kind of competitive edge that has made Clark one of the most watched players in basketball. But the officials did not let that moment slide. Clark and Rivers were both assessed technical fouls, and because it was Clark's 7th of the season, it pushed her to the edge of an automatic suspension. And let's be honest, that scoreboard response is exactly why this went viral so quickly. It wasn't just trash talk. It was classic competitor energy. It was the kind of line that fans replay, clip, post, debate, celebrate, and criticize all at once. Some people hear that and say, that's what makes great players great. Others hear it and say, that's exactly the kind of thing that can get you in trouble when officials are already watching closely. And that's the tension at the heart of this story. Caitlin Clark's fire is one of the biggest reasons she has become such a magnetic star. But that same fire also keeps putting her in situations where the line between intensity and punishment gets thinner and thinner. That's really what makes this moment more than just another technical foul. It's not about one exchange. It's about what happens when a player with a huge personality, enormous pressure, and non-stop defensive attention tries to walk the line between emotional leadership and emotional overflow. Clark herself made it clear that she understands that balance matters. After the game, she said she wants to continue trying to control her emotions the best she can. She also said that intensity and fire are what make her who she is, while recognizing that her team needs her and that she has to find a good balance. But she also made it pretty clear that she is not going to start playing scared or passive just because one more technical means suspension. And that mindset might be the biggest part of this whole story. Because when athletes get close to a suspension threshold, especially for technical fouls, you usually start hearing conversations about playing more carefully, choosing your battles, avoiding confrontations, staying extra calm with officials. But Clark's public comments did not sound like the comments of someone planning to completely change her personality on the floor. When she was asked about the possibility of suspension, she joked that she couldn't predict the future and told reporters to ask a magic 8-ball. That answer was funny, but it also revealed something deeper. She knows the narrative. She knows people are waiting to see if she explodes again. She knows the next whistle, the next argument, the next emotional reaction could dominate headlines. And still, she is not presenting herself as someone who is going to shrink because of it. That's why fans are split right now in such a dramatic way. On one side, you have people saying this is who Caitlin Clark has always been. She competes hard, she talks, she reacts, she wears every moment on her face, and that authenticity is a huge part of why fans connect with her. They don't want a sanitized version of Caitlin Clark. They don't want a player who looks afraid to show emotion. They don't want the swagger removed. They don't want the fire coached out of her. To those fans, this whole situation is proof that Clark plays with a level of intensity that elevates the entertainment value of the league every time she steps on the floor. On the other side, there are plenty of people saying that no matter how competitive you are, no matter how much attention you get, at some point you have to be smarter than that. If you know you're one technical away from sitting out a game, then every emotional outburst carries extra weight. For those critics, this isn't about whether Clark is passionate. It's about whether passion is costing her too much. And that's a fair conversation too, because for a team like Indiana, losing a player like Caitlin Clark for even one game because of accumulated technicals would be a massive blow. Not because she's just a star, but because she is central to everything the Fever do offensively in terms of shot creation, pace, floor spacing, and playmaking. That is why this story isn't going away anytime soon. From this point forward, every game Clark plays comes with an added layer of suspense. It's not just about how many points she scores. It's not just about the result. It's not just about the matchup. It's also about whether emotions stay under control, whether officiating becomes a factor, whether an opponent gets under her skin, whether a hard foul or verbal exchange turns into something more, and whether the refs decide enough is enough. That kind of tension creates drama before the ball is even tipped. It gives every possession extra heat. It makes every stare down, every complaint, every animated reaction feel like it could become the story of the night. And remember, this is happening while Clark is still producing at a high level. Against Connecticut, she posted 27 points and 11 assists in the Fever's win. So this isn't a case of frustration boiling over because she's struggling badly and things are falling apart. That's what makes the situation even more fascinating. She's performing. She's helping Indiana win. She's still delivering the stat lines people expect from a superstar. And yet the emotional storyline is right there beside the basketball story, almost impossible to separate. There's also the bigger context of how technical fouls accumulate and what they say about a player's relationship with the pace and pressure of the season. According to the reporting, WNBA players receive a one-game suspension once they reach 8 technical fouls in one season. Clark is now at 7. ESPN also reported that her 7 technicals are tied for the most in the WNBA with Angel Reese, and that Clark now has 15 in her career, the second most by a player in her first 3 seasons in league history, behind Reese's 19. Those numbers matter because they turn this from a one-night controversy into a trend people can measure and track. Now, does that mean Caitlin Clark is out of control? Not necessarily. It means she plays on the edge emotionally, and in a league where games are physical, rivalries are real, and officiating decisions are constantly scrutinized, living on that edge can produce both brilliance and trouble. That's what makes elite competitors so compelling in the first place. The same intensity that helps fuel big performances can also create volatile moments. Fans love the passion when it results in a dagger 3, a flex, a stare, or a signature quote. But when that same energy crosses into a technical foul, suddenly the conversation changes from charisma to discipline. Another piece of this story that matters is the response from Fever head coach Stephanie White. She did not sound like someone trying to completely clamp down on Clark's edge. According to ESPN, White scoffed at the idea of having some strategic plan around Clark's technical fouls and joked that anybody who thinks she has such a plan is crazy. She said Clark has to pick and choose, and she acknowledged that Clark is aware of the situation. White's comments are important because they suggest Indiana is not trying to strip Clark of the instincts that make her special. They understand the risk, but they also know that trying to turn a fiery superstar into a robotic player could do more harm than good. And that might be the smartest approach, even if it feels dangerous. Because the truth is, players like Caitlin Clark do not become stars by carefully calculating every emotional expression. They become stars by playing free, fearless, and fully invested. The problem is that the higher your profile gets, the less room there is for emotional mistakes. Clark is one of the most watched athletes in the sport. Every replay gets slowed down. Every quote gets clipped. Every stare gets analyzed. Every technical foul turns into a national conversation. That's the reality of superstardom. You are not just playing the game anymore. You are also playing inside a non-stop media cycle where every emotional beat gets amplified. That's why her post-game exchange with reporters also attracted so much attention. Sports Illustrated described Clark as getting annoyed with the line of questioning and saying, "You guys came for basketball, let's talk about basketball, come on now. We're heading to the Commissioner's Cup Championship. That's pretty exciting. You'll want to talk about that. Let's talk about that." And honestly, that quote adds another layer to the whole situation. Because from Clark's perspective, she had just helped her team move forward, had just played winning basketball, had just contributed in a major way, and yet the question centered once again on conflict, fouls, and controversy. That frustration is understandable. At the same time, it also shows how impossible it is for her to escape the spotlight once moments like this happen. When you're a player at her level of fame, the emotional incidents become part of the basketball story whether you like it or not. Fans want the highlights. Media wants the reaction. Opponents want to challenge you. Officials are watching closely. And somewhere in the middle of all that, Clark still has to perform, lead, create, score, and help Indiana win games. That's why this next stretch of games is going to be so fascinating. The Fever improved to 17-10 with the win mentioned by ESPN, and Clark was also set to participate in the WNBA All-Star Game according to People. So the spotlight is not dimming anytime soon. If anything, it's only getting brighter. Every nationally discussed moment from here on out is going to come with the same question. Can Caitlin Clark stay aggressive without crossing that line? Can she keep the swagger without picking up number 8? Can she keep talking, competing, and responding the way she always has, while also protecting her availability for her team? And let's not ignore the psychological side of this. Even if Clark says she's not going to play with the suspension risk in the back of her head, there's no doubt everyone around the situation will be thinking about it. Opponents will know. Commentators will mention it. Fans will track it. Social media will erupt the second she reacts to anything that even looks close to a technical. That changes the emotional atmosphere around every game. Suddenly, routine frustration becomes headline material. A normal complaint to an official can feel like a countdown moment. The tension builds on its own. In a strange way, this is exactly the kind of drama that turns already big stars into even bigger storylines. Because now people aren't just tuning in to watch Caitlin Clark play basketball. They're tuning in to see what happens next. Will she go on a tear and avoid trouble completely? Will there be a controversial whistle that pushes everyone over the edge? Will she talk her way into another technical? Will she have a huge game and still find herself in a heated exchange? Suspense sells, and right now Clark is at the center of one of the most suspenseful player storylines in the league. At the same time, there's a very real basketball consequence hanging over all of this. If that next technical comes, it's not symbolic. It's not just bad press. It's an actual missed game. And for the Fever, that would matter a lot. You do not casually replace a player who controls tempo, bends defenses, stretches the floor, and creates shots for teammates the way Clark does. A one-game suspension in the middle of a competitive stretch can change rhythm, momentum, and even standings implications depending on timing. So even if some fans treat this like pure entertainment, the Fever absolutely understand that there is real competitive value in keeping their star on the floor. Still, if you listen to Clark's own words, she seems determined not to let fear define her approach. She said, "I'm never going to back down." That is the quote that really captures the entire story. Because for better or worse, that is who Caitlin Clark is selling to the world right now. A player who may need to manage emotions better, a player who understands the stakes, but a player who refuses to become passive just to avoid criticism. And maybe that is why this story feels bigger than a technical foul tally. It feels like a test of identity. Can Clark remain fully herself while also adapting to the realities of professional officiating and the burden of being one of the faces of the league? Can she stay fiery without becoming vulnerable to preventable suspensions? Can she keep the edge that fuels her greatness while trimming just enough of the chaos to protect her team? That's the real question now. Because make no mistake, the next technical foul is no longer just a whistle. It would be a major news event. It would trigger debates about officiating, maturity, media pressure, and whether Clark is treated fairly or simply needs more control. It would create instant controversy. And that's exactly why people cannot stop talking about this. Caitlin Clark has reached the point where every emotional moment carries league-wide attention. So now the stage is set. One player, one number, one technical away. One more heated exchange, one more argument, one more emotional flashpoint, and the story gets even bigger. Until then, every game becomes a pressure cooker. Every reaction becomes something fans freeze frame and debate. Every matchup carries that little extra tension. And whether you love the swagger, criticize the emotion, or just can't look away from the drama, one thing is undeniable. Caitlin Clark has once again become the center of the basketball conversation, and the next chapter of this story could arrive at any moment.